Now, please.
There you go.
All right, Pat Barrier.
Paul Cadre.
All right, one of my favorite guys. Okay, you are one of those very unique situations where you grew up in the program as a player and as a coach. So I want you to take me back to those thrilling days of yesteryear. I mean, and really in the early phases of the program, and part of the Kingsman's first magical moment. So we're going to talk about that, but I want to start with talking about the Penn Way.
Sure.
Penn Way is described by many people, and a good portion of the front of the book is we're going to describe to people what the Penn Way means to different people. It could be a mental aspect, it could be an emotional attachment. Coaches have a different mindset, players have a different mindset. So I'm going to ask you to give me two.
Mm-hmm.
As a football player in 1981, 82, and 83, what did the Penn Way mean? And now as a football coach from 1989 until present, what does the Penn Way mean? Is it the same?
Well, yeah, that's the whole point, that it means the same thing every year. It's a brotherhood. It's guys working together to accomplish a goal, being there for one another, and it's all instilled by really the coaches. And the coaches give the team over to the players, and the players take that responsibility, and that's what makes it so special. And it's about coming together and playing together, and commitment and sacrifice, and playing the Kingsman way.
Would you say it is an emotional thing, or is it a mental thing?
Well, it's both. I think in athletes, to play at that caliber or that high level, you have to be emotionally, physically, and mentally, all of them working together. And that emotional and mental part is probably more important than the physical part, without a doubt.
Okay, Coach Giesman talks about when they won the first state championship.
Yeah.
He says, afterwards, he said, we probably should have done this before. This really wasn't that hard. What did we do?
Yeah.
But and you know this very well because you were part of this thing, but in a little bit different vein. So tell me what it was like being
I grew up watching those teams,
right,
from elementary and middle school, and idolizing those players. And they had so many close calls, and there were teams that, in 78, 79, 70, those teams were just as good. And sometimes that happens, one play here, one play there, a fumble, and it's just, that's happened many times as coach too, that I've coached with, those types of games. So it just kind of came together, and just work, and then I think it finally paid off. And the funny thing was the state championship game. That's the first time we were trailing at half in any game that year. And I remember Geese comes in, and I can remember as a player sitting over here from the right, he's in the offense. What do we got to do? What do we got to do? And the coach is like, go sit down, get away, just leave us alone. Let the other coaches do their thing. He was so nervous, and I think he went up into the restroom and threw up. He was so nervous, he didn't know what to do. And we just came out, and we just we stopped making mistakes and turned the game around against the Washington.
What was it like? First state championship.
Yeah, magical. That whole year was a magical year. Before the season ever started, we had some guys on that team, like Todd Yeoman, who was his older brother, Corey, obviously, played on that 79 team, lost a heartbreaker, to Hobart. And so we, for 4 years, that's all we wanted to do was, to win. And so it was a long trek that we had started way back when. And so, there was 25, 30 guys that played on that, seniors, that came together their senior year. And I can remember Coach Giesman coming in the off season before our season started in the spring and early summer. And he sat down with us in the gym, and he sat all the seniors down. And he had this just magical, story he told us about some guys and experiences he had with other players at high school before, and how each one of those players weren't gonna let, the other one down, Crunch time in the game, you looked over to your right, you look over to your left, and you knew he wasn't gonna let you down. And you knew Bobby wasn't gonna let you down. And so that kind of bonded, and that whole summer we trained together. That whole 25, 30, and trained very hard. We went to Michigan football camp, a lot of us did, like 15, 20 of us together. And there was a commitment there that was special. And so, that was one thing we just felt that we weren't gonna be denied. It was almost like this was gonna happen. And we stayed pretty much injury-free, which was, a big important thing to it. We lost a couple of players there, but they came back at the end. And we got some breaks, like you always got to have some breaks. But we played very well together. And that last game, of course, we had a close call against Central that year too, but that last game was something special.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys beat the Bricks.
Yeah.
And now, let's go back and, Corey and I laugh about that. You don't want to laugh about it because my first year coaching was in '79 at Hobart.
Yeah.
Of course, I grew up there, so we talk about that. And Coach Howell calls it the greatest game in the history, and McGee's calls the greatest game was '83 when they beat the Bricks. So we got all this emotional thing going on here. But you saw the '79 game. The '79 Penn team beat Hobart up so bad physically, it cost them a state championship. They lost 6 starters, and it cost them a state championship. Now, having said that, it had to be very gratifying, knowing what you saw as an athlete, to be able to come back and turn the tables and kick their butt. I mean, was it 17-0?
Yeah.
I think it was, and then you guys won the state championship.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, the one game we weren't going to lose was that game. Because of what had happened that year. And I can remember in the morning we came, because we didn't have school that day, and it was like sub-zero temperature that game was. And we came out at 9 o'clock, Geese got us out, we came and watched films, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, there are Bricky fans lining up, waiting to get tickets. 20, 30 of them waiting in line to get tickets at 9 o'clock in the morning. So, you can tell what a great program that was too, and how much that was just a rivalry that kind of was, we didn't play kind of like we do as many dueling teams as we do now, but certainly that was something that was 2 great programs that really admired one another, and really, it was a game for keeps, and we played that way. There's not a game that I was more sore at than after that game. It was, they came out and they looked like the Green Bay Packers on the offensive line. They had Big Karras that was there, they had a huge offensive line, but it was a war that was in the trenches. It was a hard-hit game.
You had a chance to play for a whole bunch of Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And you also had a chance to work with a whole bunch of Hall of Fame coaches. So talk about the dynamic of them as mentors, them as mentors and as peers.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, if I talk about all of the, just as a whole, is that they're just great people. We're great people. And they taught me so much and gave me so much in life. From 7th grade, it starts with guys like Keith Wedham and Wes Doy and Marty Hudkins, the people that really start to develop you as a young person in the middle school area. So much, I don't think enough of those guys get credit going all the way back to the middle school days. Jim Garrett, Sam Watson. My coach all through my years, Art Klinger was my coach from 7th grade and wrestling all the way up till I was a senior in high school. So he followed me this whole way, or I followed him, whatever, how you look at it. But he was such an influence on me. Taught me how to be a young man, how to be tough, how to persevere, how to give your best effort, and at the end of the day, that's enough. And then, of course, getting to work with them, was a whole other thing. And then those, that's Penn football. Guys like, Chuck Wagner and Dave Geyer, what a great coach. Bar none, every coach and person or athlete that comes in here that was a Penn football player, talk about Dave Geyer and their eyes start shining up, or Chuck Wagner or Wally Yeoman, and Don Monmouth, what an incredible man, they just gave you so much in life, and then to work with them, You know, it made your day so much easier because they were just so good at what they did. You had to just step back and watch, and they would teach you all you need to do if you were, you know, willing to look and just pay attention. Just great coaches. The heart of Penn football.
Corey, as a head coach, and makes the transition from being Chris's number one guy. We knew that going in. So, and you were there, and you were part of the transition. So,
Sure.
so you watched Chris coach, and then you watched the power shift, or I should say the
Baton being handed off.
yeah, the baton being handed off. So tell us about the transitional year from Chris leaving to Corey taking over, and then you guys had a magical run.
Right.
And the first
year. Right.
year. So we'll just talk about the different styles of coaching, different types of personalities, and how seamless that seemed from an outsider's standpoint.
Well, like I said earlier, a lot has to do with sort of how Penn football and the coaches and its tradition kind of developed, where we turned that team over to the players, to those seniors. And those seniors are held accountable to, you know, to the highest of standards. And it's going to be up to them to be the champions if they want to be champions. And I think doing that Corey didn't change a lot. You know, he kept the same, he let the coaches coach. He didn't step on their toes. And he just let us be coaches and do what we knew how to do best. I think one of the greatest things and one of the greatest attributes about Chris Giesman was, I think this is a great attribute about all great leaders, is they pick people they think can be successful and they let them do their jobs. They don't have to micromanage them. They let them be great coaches and they can stay out of their way. And that's going to, you know, that taking that sort of risk and having that kind of confidence is, I think, an attribute of a great leader. Because then you have all of these coaches working for the same goal, and they feel a part of it. And I think Corey did that, you know, with he had the wisdom to allow those coaches to do that. And a lot of the assistants were still there, which really helps a lot, and they were going. But, you know, Corey is a great football mind, and he is very observant, and he knew why Penn football was so successful.
Does Pat Barrier have a favorite Penn football moment as a player or as a coach? It may not even be a game. It may be a coach's staff meeting, or maybe a clinic. It may be a ride home from a coach's clinic.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story that's really funny, but this goes not even as a player. I'm going to go all the way back to Penn football camp. And we were out one day. It was one of the last days of camp, and I think I was in maybe 6th grade. And the coaches out there, and Coach Giesman comes along, and the coach is teaching an arm shiver, you know, the old arm shiver move. And I was up there, and so Gies comes in and he goes, "Okay, get on here. I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, if you've been teaching this kid right, you know, he ought to be able to do this, that, and that. So let's see if you've been teaching him right." And so he goes, when he snaps the ball, you go ahead and give me an arm shiver. And so I'm standing, I'm like, "Oh God, what am I going to do?" He snaps the ball, and all of a sudden, wham! I rise up, and man, I caught him just perfect, but a little bit low, if you know what I mean. And he goes, he kept a straight face, and he kept the air in his breath, and he goes, "Okay, you've been teaching him the right way. I see you can do it. He's doing a good job." And so that's always stuck with me, you know. And I think that was a funny moment. But gosh, there's so many of them. Probably one of the happiest moments that I can remember is when we won in '95. And I just, the amount of time that was put in, and then after that game and back, you know, after the game into the hotel room, and just the celebration with all the coaches. There was such joy, and there was such, you know, just camaraderie there between those coaches, that they had done it again. You know, Corey, that was the first time Corey had won one. and he'd been there for a while. He put so much passion and so much time into that. And for a lot of those other coaches that had been there for a long time, that it's like reaffirming that they'd won again. So, and coming up so close in '89, that heartbreaker, and then getting there and getting those other times, finally we did it again. And so after that game and after that, that was a special moment for me. And that was the first time as a coach that we had won too in '95, so except for when I was a player. So that was kind of a special moment as well.
All right, if you look at '95, '96, and '97, 3 state championship, 3 separate quarterbacks, 3 really kind of different teams, different personnel. That being topic A. Topic B being 1973 to 2017. Which is the greater feat? The greatness and the longevity of the program, or winning 3 state championship with 3 different personnels in the biggest class in the most difficult sport to win a state championship is high school football. You got to win a sectional over 3 weeks with a wide variety of weathers.
Tough trophy to win.
Toughest trophy to win. So which is the most significant of the 2?
Well, I would have to say the program, because there's so many things and so many variables and so much commitment that goes into it. I think those wins in those 3 state championships are just a reflection of that. You know what I'm saying? It's just all the hard work and all the dedication that goes into that, because we had been there. We won in 2000. We've been there again too. So that sort of justifies that answer. It's really, that is to build a program and to do something and to keep it going and to have that type of success is the greatest success, I think.